Okay, we're live, and I'm Peter K3YE, and this is a special video, special live session. Just thought I'd thank everyone for subscribing and following the channel over many years. Finally hit 20,000 subscribers last night, so thought I'd get up at a time that is convenient for those in North America, hopefully not too late for those in Europe and the UK, and have a live chat, general Q&A session, and I'll also talk a little bit about you. Hello to Andy, and I've been able to get some information. I've been running on the channel. If you have a look at the community tab on my YouTube channel and many others, I've been running various questions and polls, and there's been some really good answers and things. So it's told me a lot more about your activities in amateur radio, what you like, what you don't like, and all sorts of things. So I'll dip into that during the video. First of all, I'll just bear with me for a while. I'll just put up some advertising to tell people on my Facebook page that this video is running. Hello to VK3XBB all the way in San Diego. So we'll just refresh this, and okay, doesn't look like I'm live yet. Oh no, I am live yet. There we are. We'll just yeah, overall we're in the middle of winter. Haven't been doing a lot of portable operating, and haven't been doing any, but I have been doing some activity from home despite all the RF noise that I get. And I've been having a few contacts, mainly on 80 meters CW, with some very simple, very chirpy transmitter, as you might have heard in or might have seen in a video a couple of days back. Yeah, so but overall it's been pretty mild for winter, so yeah, that's so I've been able to get a few projects done, and I'm experimenting with a regenerative receiver. It's actually in, if you get Sprat from the Qrp Club, there it is. Make sure you build it. It's a super simple regenerative receiver. I built it, worked first time, and yeah, the unusual thing about it is that it doesn't require a tapped coil. It gets the feedback via capacitors, which may limit the bandwidth. And I'm thinking of having an arrangement where you have different values of capacitors that you plug in with, along with plug-in. In fact, I won't even have plug-in coils. What I might do, I might have an arrangement where I might use D connectors that may or may not work because of all the capacitance. But if you buy computer printer switch boxes, they often have 3 D connectors on the back. But anyway, if you take those out and then use a D connector from the other type, like male instead of female, and you can get them from old printer cables. And anyway, I found some in the cupboard here. So you could put that in the back panel, and you could have things like various coils and capacitors in your receiver. And if you wanted to do multiple bands, then you just select them by shorting different pins on the D connector with the plug that you're plugging in the back, and that can change. That can be a way of band changing without plug-in coils as such, because you've got the coils all inside the receiver. You're just shorting various coils, various capacitors, and so yeah, that could be a way forward. Haven't built it in that format yet. I do know the receiver works, so yeah, that's a potential future project. Anyway, we've got 8 people watching, and hello to Zuba and Chris KD9USK. And if you've just turned on, I'm Peter VK3YE, and sort of a bit of a free for. You can ask me questions, and I'll also run through what I've been able to. Some of the comments received on the community tab. Doing this because we've hit 20,000 subscribers, which is a bit of a milestone. So yeah, I started putting a few more comments and questions. So I about a month ago, so I was asking people about the field day. If you want to find out and read some of the reactions and things, you can have a look at the community tab. And I first of all had a, in fact, I'll just turn the computer around to the main computer. There it is in the background. Make your field day look like this. So that's, me when I'm out portable, just out in the field. I think there I was using a half square antenna, working some DX on 20 meters. Anyway, that was around the time of the field day in the United States. So I was just asking people about that. Didn't get a huge, only got one comment as I was just starting up. As one, Will Brokenborough said, it'd be nice if I had the extra time and components. You have enough fun for the both of us. Yeah, well, great thing about with field days is, you don't need a whole new station. You can even get out your existing home station, provided you've got something to power it. So you do have to think harder about power if you do that. Because of, if you're carting a 100-watt rig out into the field, so you might only have an hour or 2 hours of operating. But yeah, later on you can get a portable rig. Maybe depending on the rules, you could maybe not operate properly in the field day, but you could tap power off a vehicle's battery and operate that way to get a taste of things. So yeah, that's my first question, was about operating on field days. Then I had a picture that got me a lot of reaction. In fact, I'll just don't think I can easily import pictures into this. So I'll turn the computer around so you can see. Oh, solar panels, yes. Definitely a good idea to keep the battery topped up. You will need substantial amount of solar panels for 100 watt, a bit less for 5 watts or QRP. Another thing that got a lot of really good response was, what was your first radio project? And that's me. When I was much younger, still sitting on the ground and barefoot. In that case, not much has changed. But anyway, that's what I was doing. It was a electric tea stirrer. So that was me much younger. And that was one of my first electronic projects. So just a motor attached to a spoon. But anyway, there was a great response there. Other people were saying, Ian Mitchell was saying their first device was a little electromagnetic buzzer coil on a bolt, and then graduated to a crystal set. Then De Rigler 01 mentioned a stun gun. It was more fun to shock myself than I expected. Yeah, the nearest I got to something like that was, I think, just a 9-volt battery and a transformer. Might have even been a speaker transformer. It wasn't very big. But anyway, if you put that across the 8-ohm section and you gripped the 9-ohm, the high impedance part, then you could get a bit of a kickback from that. John West built an electric boat. He took a motor from a broken toy car found in the trash, and then a propeller from a rubber-based powered plane, a couple of batteries from an old flashlight, and then mounted on a bit of 2x4 with sticks, rubber bands, and glue. So real improvised thing there and launched it in a big puddle. So yeah, that would have been fun when he was about 7 or 8. Make a Day said, yeah, crystal sets would have been popular as first projects. Yeah, germanium crystal immovable whisker, that was built by Make a Day. WX Freak, 150 in 1 kits with spring terminals to connect their wires. Any electronic device, tiny dimmable battery-based light. Yeah, that was from Eric Lee. And Pete Millis, M3KXZ, built a crystal receiver with his neighbor, who is an electronic wizard. And hello to Mike Herbert, DL8C, Mike Herbst, DL8CY. So thank you for watching. And if you've just joined, it's a live session, and I'm Peter, VK3YE. M3KXZ was building a crystal receiver. Now, he tried to make it into a transmitter when he was 10 by reversing polarity of the battery connections on a battery-powered transistor radio. For some reason, he couldn't get it to work, even when shouting into the speaker. I'm sure everyone's tried shouting into the speaker in a receiver, hoping it would transmit. But yeah, a lot of things in electronics are reversible, but that wasn't quite. Robert van der Sanden, again, it was a crystal radio with 2 cigar tins and a sheet of paper as tuning capacitor. Audio amplifiers, doorbells. It's quite popular with a pressure pad. Yep, a couple of tins from a Milo tin as we, used, or powdered milk and a sponge. Sinclair Micro 6 radio from Mad Carew. Art of Engineering, good to have you commenting, George. Built a double conversion superhet receiver with an old kettle, a calculator, and a black and white TV while watching an episode of MacGyver. So yeah, Meccano from LU8ATK, Ramsey FM radio transmitter. They were apparently quite popular in the States. And VK2IG built an electromagnetic round with MDF jumper wire and steel axle from a Meccano set, powered by some flat batteries, used to power the phones on party lines. So, yep, quite a few things were people's first projects. In case you're wondering, I'm just taking bits and pieces out of the community tab where I've been asking people about various things. And if you've just joined, you can ask me questions as well and put comments in the chat. And just thought I'd come on live. It's just after 7 a.m. here on Tuesday morning here in Melbourne. And hello to Andy. I did check the time, and I thought it was pretty close to bedtime in the UK. So, thought a few late people might be up. And as we go on, it's probably the best time for, say, the east coast of North America, probably around dinner time there. Maybe a few people the west, the central, coming back from work and turning on. So now up to 14 viewers. So the numbers are building up. I also did a polls now, a survey, and quite a few people asked, responded to this one. The first Baofeng transceiver I bought, now 229 votes, so that was quite popular. And of that, 67%, so over 2/3, their Baofeng is still going strong. And then 13% got put in a drawer and forgotten. Yeah, I think nearly everyone's got a Baofeng in a drawer probably. 9% got sold or given away. 7% it broke, and only 3% had a battery that died. So yeah, battery is sometimes the weak link. And in the comments, there was SED71, who's locally not far from me here in Melbourne. Got mine in 2012, but tested its output on a spectrum analyzer, and it was like lots of lines, lots of harmonics, way past 3 gigahertz. So his Baofeng, he got a bad one there. So yeah, maybe more for receiving. From Clint J, his UV5R still going strong. Bought it the year before he got his license, so he could listen. Used it for a while, but ended up lending it to friends and colleagues so they could listen and learn for the license as well. So yeah, definitely a great use for a Baofeng. Mr. Supetrodine, still going strong, 7 years after lots of use. And Rio PU1OWL says it's forgotten, mostly because it suffers serious desensitization caused by local broadcast station. VK2IG again, never bought because of all the bad stories he heard. Quite a few people, other people, M0JSX, Jonathan, mine overheated as it was a plastic box on a summer's day, transmitting APRS packets. And and Plasma Storm 73 N5 EVV gave it to another ham. Can you tell me how to make a transceiver from SA818? Oh yeah, that's sort of a module you can buy, as I learned later on. And Frank Arteria didn't really like, a couple of people didn't like the Baofeng, but overall, good response to that. If you've just turned on, I'm Peter, VK3YE, AK3YE, it's my American call, and I'm live, and you can ask me stuff in the comments in the chat. Now this didn't get a lot of a response. Have you made a contact on CW? Here's a session where I talk about it. Yeah, I find that in the community tab in YouTube, if you're not a YouTube creator, you can pretty much do three things. You can have a survey if you want and have comments, or you can comments below, but the survey, a lot of people, it's very easy just to click one of 3 or 4 or 5 options, so that gets lots of people. Or you could have a video, maybe someone else's video or one of your own, or you can have a picture. And in the thing on CW contacts, I linked to a video I did on getting your first CW contact, and 6 people liked it, no one commented, so yet not a huge response there. But quite a few people commented about pirate radio. Have they pirated? So I asked them the question. I did a pirate poll. Have you ever done pirate radio transmissions on any frequency? And please share your experiences as well. And that got a few people. 64% of you are goodies and never pirated. Another 34% said they're pirated and never caught, so you're a smart pirate. And 2% pirated and got caught. So bad luck on that. Anyway, some really good pirate stories, because I've been running this 5-part series on pirate radio transmissions and things, and not many people watch them, but I got some great comments on them. And anyway, that translated across the pirate poll. Arena Engineering said that while they were in school, Art of Engineering, making a shirt for the fan club for 100,000. So, yep, good to have you watching, George. 100,000 would be a long, long way, because my experience is there's a few channels that get to those sorts of numbers, but mine had pretty much leveled off. It was only growing by a couple a day, but then sometimes if you have a certain video that can really get people interested in watching and subscribing, and the one that's did it for me recently was the one I did on the Shortwave Australia. My friend Dave, VK3ASC, moved house and out to back of Bendigo, and not long after he moved into the new house, he put up an antenna and got on air on the frequencies are 2310 and 4835 kilohertz. 4835 is probably the best one, and he's on the air from 0500 UTC to 1500 UTC. So basically in the afternoon Australian time. It's going to be difficult for anyone in Europe to get it, but if you're in North America, you might just be able to get it, especially if you're on the West Coast, on the 4835 frequency. Anyway, yeah, I was talking about pirating, and Arena Engineering said several times I went to school. He did a pirate broadcast over a wired radio broadcast network. During the lunch break, the main station took a break for an hour, and at the time the classmates played music into the radio network through a powerful amplifier. So he became a DJ at school. A few comments of Pirate UHF-CB. Oh yeah, I ran a Pirate UHF-CB, an 11-metre repeater for many years in Melbourne, around 98 to 2012. Later in the repeater's life, he put in CTCSS. That's when the ACMA acted. Transmitting 10 milliwatts on TV frequencies. Curtly Whip imported an FM broadcast transmitter from Slovenia when he was 16. 10 watts, covered most of the city. Learned a lot about antennas. He was not asked to shut down by the authorities, but by deputy headmaster of the boarding school. Now, Chris Wilton said, we knew a certain district radio inspector who may or may not have an interest in a 15-year-old girl we knew on the CB. We may or may not have used that knowledge to come to an arrangement for operating out of band with non-standard equipment. And then here we are. Tech Tinkering was using some PMR 446 radios in the UK. Decided it would be cool for the first radio experience to be someone's music. So put an MP3 in a box with a car battery and left it on a huge hill, playing lots of stuff. A week over Christmas, used to occupy a channel on CB, doing the same things from an industrial building. So yeah, so that's some pirate stories. And thanks to Glasnow for the kind comments, the best ham channel on YouTube. NPC asks about, would you say a PAR NFEDS or EFT 810-2040? I don't know about those particular model of antennas, but I have described a particular antenna that's probably pretty similar, too much of a compromise. I've had pretty good results from something like that. Its bandwidth would be a bit narrow on 40 meters, probably not quite as good as a full-sized antenna, but if that's all the room you've got, then stick it up and try it. And Art of Engineering, I'm making my QRP 5 watts, 20 watts using your not a QRP transmitter videos. Yeah, you might get some even more chirp with that, but yeah, you'll be able to punch through the noise and hear yourself on more SDRs. You might even get to the West Coast. I think that you are probably better placed to be heard in New Zealand than I am. I'm definitely better placed to be heard in Western Australia than those in VK2 or VK4. If you've just joined, I'm live. I'm here VK3YE, and I've called the thing All About You. So I'll just having a look at the community tab on my channel, where I asked viewers various things. And anyway, I asked about people in others in my family or household, ... and I did a multiple choice thing. What are their attitudes basically towards amateur radio? And 72% of cases, they tolerate your amateur activity. Another 20%, they like your amateur activity. So you're not overstaying your welcome in 92% of cases. So that's pretty good. But there's another 4% who dislike your amateur activity. And then there's another enthusiastic 4% who want to become hams. So, that's a bit of a survey of what other people in your household think about amateur radio. And in some cases, their partners even got into amateur radio licensing. Then tallest tower, amateur radio tower. That was quite popular. 245 people voted and quite a few comments. The surprising thing, my question was, what was the tallest amateur radio tower or mast you have at home? Anyway, the majority, or not the majority, but the biggest number had no towers or masts at home. So maybe either because they don't have the space, or they listen on SDRs, or they have other electronic activities other than listening. 46% of you, no towers or masts at home. Then the other most popular was 6 to 12 meters, which was good enough for what I want. So you could even use a squid pole for that. Then next you had 3 to 5 meters. So keeping it really low profile, you wouldn't even be able to see it from the front of the house probably. No one would notice. Anyway, 12% of people had a mast. Their tallest mast was 3 to 5 meters. So then there was another, people 13 to 20 meters, 8%, and over 20 meters, I transmit therefore I am 2%. Only a lucky 2% had a mast taller than 20 meters. So yeah, most of us have pretty mediocre antennas, or no masts at all. So yeah, that was an interesting little survey that I ran. And you can, not too many comments in the chat. So yeah, you can ask me things, and I'm having a look at the chat just by the side of the window. 11 people watching. I haven't really promoted this hugely, but there might be a few people from the Facebook page. Just as I mentioned in the front, just hit 20,000 subscribers. So a bit of a milestone. So thanks for that. Should have got a drink of water before starting. Quite a few attitudes, different attitudes towards VSWR. VSWR, there were not enough options in this survey to have all of them. But anyway, my question, hello to M0VFX, colorist. Do I use mag loops in the field very often from the Art of Engineering, or do I prefer wire antennas? Well, in fact, I just have on the screen. That's magnetic loops when it's summer sporadic E. I'll in 10 meters is open, maybe 6 meters. I'll bolt out the door with a hand carried magnetic loop like that. So that will work on bands from 21 through to 50 megahertz. I call it the summer loop, as just need to take it out, and on the ground is an FT817 in a bag with a battery. So yeah, that's really easy. I can walk around the suburbs without any fear of the loop getting on into trees or power lines or bridges or anything like that. So I do usually use the magnetic loop portable in the summer. Other times when I'm portable, because I can usually take a squid pole, or I can tie that pole to something, say a fence, and and have an end-fed wire. So that's what I most often do. Or I might have a half square antenna if I take several poles. That's a bit more efficient for DX to Europe. So yeah, generally speaking, I've got enough room to take a pole or wire or something like that. But if I want to have the novelty of operating pedestrian mobile, magnetic loop is one option. Otherwise, what I call the raid tenor, which is a vertical when I'm walking in the water, that works a lot better. When I'm not in the water, then magnetic loop is quite light and portable, and that's what I normally would be for the higher HF bands. Okay, lots of comments here. Great. Hello to Max Battle Lizard. Glad that you love the channel, and wanted to home build a radio and end up buying a G90. Well, you can't have too many radios, so you might still build one, even if you're just using the G90 as a receiver. That can be a lot of fun. Maybe just build a little 1 or 2 transistor CW transmitter, see if you can get any contacts. David Porch, I was interested in the 2-watt transmitter using the ceramic resonator. How easy are they to obtain in useful frequencies? Well, the most useful frequency is 3.58 megahertz, which you can pull down to cover the CW end of 7 megahertz. The CW end of 3.5 megahertz. You can also get them, they're a bit less common, 3.69 or 3.68, and you can pull them to cover more of the SSB portion, even 4 megahertz in North America, where you can run SSB at 3.9 meg. You could try that. There's a supplier in Australia that sells them, mini kits over in South Australia. I think Rockby Electronics might sell them here in Melbourne. So yeah, just do a now from Paul Austin. So yeah, you can get ceramic resonators. Have a look on eBay. There are different radio spares, I think, sell them. In fact, my first ceramic resonator back in the 90s came from radio spares or RS components. Paul Austin asked, I've always interested in what you've used for an enclosure. Yeah, I've actually got a video just on enclosures. Are you involved in the industry, or is it just a hobby? Just a hobby, but I'm self-employed, so I can. Yeah, I was involved in the industry for like most of the time. I've been employed in jobs that haven't been electronics, but for a while, for about 6 years, I was working for Dick Smith Electronics, which was one of our large electronic retailers. So yeah, selling bits and pieces all day. And that was 98 to 2004. So I have been in the industry, but yeah, sort of hobby. But the books, I'm sort of self-employed, so yeah, books and videos give an income and all that. Now, thanks for the videos being helpful as well when trying to homebrew. Have you travelled abroad from MPC? Christian. No, I haven't travelled abroad. I have travelled interstate, which for Europeans is a similar distance for travelling abroad. So yeah, no, I haven't been overseas with radio. eBay has a lot of quartz crystals, mainly on 40 meters. Yeah, 7023 is the common crystal you can get on eBay. If you put a low value of capacitance in series, you can get above 7025, which might be handy for American listeners. In a very simple transmitter, a crystal will give you the best and most stable signal. But if you put a capacitor and a coil in series, you'll be able to pull its frequency a little bit, a few kilohertz. If you put crystals in parallel, you get what you call a super VXO, and you can get quite a bit of good frequency pulling range. But if you want the maximum frequency pulling range, then a ceramic resonator. The main sacrifice is in frequency stability, so your transmitter might sound a bit chirpy, but you get frequency agility. And if you want to go for maximum number of contacts, then frequency agility, as I always say, is king. Frequency agility, because you can call people on where they are. Even if your signal's a bit chirpy, you're going to get more contacts with a ceramic resonator and frequency agility than with crystal control. So yeah, hope that's answered all your questions. And if you've just joined, I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm live. Thought we'd do a special video. So yeah, on the community tab, I asked people about, this is more for people in the Northern Hemisphere, where it's been a hot summer. So yeah, a few people were saying, I've done a few SOTA activations. This was from No Hill for Climber. So yeah, definitely a climber from that name. Cookie Crumble QRP contest and NJQRP Skeeter Hunt in August. So there we are. If you're into portable QRP in North America, look up NJQRP's Skeeter Hunt. That's coming up next month. Back to SOTA in early fall. TAV gets their FT818 and on the bike, and they're in Hamburg, Germany. So yeah, I'm a big inspiration. So good to hear that. Chris Wilson has tried mobile CW driving along in the car. AB9GO, Randy, Parks and Portable Soda, too humid in the Ohio Valley, whereas Indiana is too flat for Summit. So I think Andy might have a YouTube channel. So it's AB9GO, so have a look at that. And Charlie B has just built a 1-watt kit for 40 meters, 130 QSOs from home. That's pretty good. So yeah, 3 amp hour. That's for KM4ZZ. So good to be out there portable with homebrew gear. Now then, I just asked people about their profile on QRZ. Now, if you're new to amateur radio, QRZ is a website that has a forum. I think it's got buy and sell. But yeah, a lot of people probably use QRZ. If you make contact with someone on the air, want to know a bit about them, often people put stuff about them on the QRZ forum. Just basic stuff like a bit about their equipment and what facets of amateur radio and their QSLing policy. Anyway, so just search their call sign, put it in the window in QRZ, and you can find out a lot about people. So you can, if you want, then put me in QRZ, put in VK3YE or AK3YE and see my QRZ profile. Anyway, 66% of you had a QRZ profile that was up to date, and another 12% didn't have a profile up to date, and 22% don't know and don't use it. So for that, could be worth looking at. If you're active on the air, have a look at your QRZ profile. 7 people viewing, so yeah, must have been pretty boring. Anyway, put some comments in the chat. I'll ask a question. And yeah, now I've got a really good response to the thing on operating ham radio from an apartment. What bands did you use and what were the results? Yeah, that's a theme that comes up, whether it's magnetic loops, limited space antennas. People can't get enough of them. So many people have so little space, but they still want to get on the air. And the good news is a lot of the time you can. Anyway, Stuart Hall is living in a ground floor apartment and gives you the ability to set up a temporary antenna off the patio, usually an end-fed with a 9-to-1 dipole transformer. Most operating is portable, which have built his skills and opportunities to try different antennas. Yeah, that's definitely a good approach. Yeah, ground floor is maybe not so good because you don't have height, but if you've got access to the ground, that can be handy. Another extreme, KB is on the 11th floor of a 15-story building. I've sort of always wondered that, although I like where I live, it would be fun to live at least for a few months in an apartment with a big balcony and to see what you can do. Anyway, KB uses VHF UHF magnetic mount with a railing on the balcony that worked quite well, or a 6-meter dipole on the balcony with mixed results. He was successful on 20 meters, having 50 foot of wire out the balcony and down the side of the building, and an old MFJ ATU, and then a coiled loop. It works with some turns and 1 meter square fed with lamp cord. Use this setup mostly on 40 meters. He got his first RF bite with this setup. Yes, you can with end-fed antennas sometimes. That was using the FT817. PU1OWL, 6th floor of the building in a densely populated area of Rio. Firstly, 6.1 meters of wire on a net. It only had limited success, even with FT8. Next, got access to a rooftop patio and operated 10 meters portable. And yeah, great success. Yeah, if you can get up on the roof patio, you can have got a Delta loop and had contacts into Spain from PU1. Where is that? I think it's in Rio. K8EAZ's a college student, operated from an apartment 12-floor balcony, mounted a ham stick adapter to a PVC mast in a concrete bucket, 40 and 20 meter ham sticks. Yeah, I think ham sticks are just vertical antennas. mobile, people use mobile. Half the antenna would be off the balcony, and got contacts from 35 states and 12 countries. That's fantastic in just a few months. Shane P, top floor of a 3-story apartment block. Currently works 270-23 centimeters using a Diamond X6000 on a 4.5 meter mast. Yeah, that would have been really good. And you don't have much feed line losses either if you're halfway up the top of your antenna. Works 6 meters with a coax antenna, and it has tried random antennas with good results on FT8, not so good on SSB. So yeah, FT8 sometimes the mode you use. There's a ham not far from me, VK3OM, and he lives in a big apartment block on overlooking the Patterson River. I've done a few videos from operating from there. Anyway, it's possible to make a simple JS8 call transceiver from Carl. Yeah, I have done that. You can use a direct conversion thing. I have demonstrated that. Of course, with a simple one, you're splatting it out on both sides of your sideband, not just upper sideband, but so it's going out on other frequencies. And your direct conversion receiver, you're getting interference from other transmissions. But yep, it does work. I have done it, and I've had contacts of thousands of kilometers away. So and you can, I don't know if you still can, but there's a supplier, and I reviewed his crystals. You can buy crystals for JS8 and FT8 frequencies, so that is worth looking up. And yep, I have done that in some previous videos. So yeah, hello to Paul. I'm glad you enjoy the videos. And now for others watching, a shout out also to Paul's YouTube channel. Paul has quality, whereas I might tend to err in the favor of quantity. But anyway, some great videos on Paul's channel. I was just looking the other day at a beacon. Looked really simple. Yeah, that would be great fun on various frequencies for building and testing. Still on balcony antennas, Joe Schmo had a mag loop with a vacuum variable capacitor. Yet they can handle the big power and ran 100 watts. And got up to about 5,000 miles, so not too bad. Yep, so some good comments there. I'm actually getting these comments off the community tab, where I've been asking people about various aspects of amateur radio and what equipment they've been using and their antennas, so some really good engagement there. If you're watching right now, though, I am reading the chat as well, and I'm live. I'm Peter VK3YE, and thought I'd come on just for. I was going to have a lunchtime special that would be more appealing to the VKs, but and that's been really successful. Actually, I haven't done one of those for a while, so I might still do that. But this is more very late evening for Europe, and people are probably eating their tea in the United States, so maybe not the best time. I asked people about, have they operated maritime mobile? That was just a yes/no question. 86% of you no, 14% yes. But if you do get the opportunity to operate maritime mobile, particularly on salt water, then you'll get some great results. Just with a vertical antenna. Ask people about field days, because we had our field day in Australia back in March. Americans had them, I think it was only a couple of weeks back. And mixed views on field days. I asked a question specifically about the ARRL field day. 26% of you participate and will be participating with other hams, so radio club thing. Then another 19% did field day, or were going to do field day on their own. 13% not this year, but I used to. 24% weren't really into contesting or giving numbers. And then 19% what's field day. Yep, okay. So yeah, basically where you go out and in the field and operate ham radio and see what contacts you make. So yeah, amateur radio is a broad church, as they say, a lot of different facets. Some people are into field day, some are not. So yes, some good comments there on field day activity. Okay, getting a little bit quiet in the comments. So yeah, if you've joined later on, my current project is something that's in the current issue of Sprat, which is a regenerative receiver. In fact, I'll go and get the carcass of the box that I'll be using. This you might have recognized was from another receiver video, which I tried and it worked. Pulled it apart because I was going through all the different boxes and things, and I thought, well, this already had a tuning control, it had a variable capacitor, it had various sockets and things. So I thought, well, that will speed up. Anyway, what I'm going to do, this is an experiment, I don't know yet. Do I have any presentations coming up? Radio clubs and things, so I take it no. I've got one in writing electronic books and things for a community centre, but not in radio stuff. So no presentations for the foreseeable future. But I do. Radio clubs do sometimes ask me to do presentations. So especially with them having Zoom and online meetings. So I can certainly, if you're in a radio club and you want someone to present, then I could possibly help you there. And there are videos floating around on YouTube. My most recent presentation was actually in person when I was down in, went down in Tasmania, where I presented to the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. So have a look on their YouTube channel. There's a presentation of me down there a little while ago. Also did a video presentation to a Northeast Radio Club in Adelaide. That was probably my most recent one. Anyway, I've been, these are, of course, old D connectors, used for computer printing things. And these come out of, well, these sort of switch boxes. They're really nice boxes for building electronic projects. And you can get them cheaply. I think they're pretty much obsolete, but they had a switch on the front and 3 connections in the back where you could switch between your computer and various printers. And sockets they had with these type of things. So I've taken these off, and then the back end of a cable was this. It was a printer cable. Now, I spent maybe over an hour. I'll tell you a story about this. It was a bit of fun. There was a bit of action in the kitchen on this. Because I had a bit of a look around my junk and couldn't find any of these female connectors, because I thought, male connectors, because I had lots of female connectors, because these are on the backs of all those boxes that I just showed you before, those printer switch boxes. So these female connectors are really common. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to be having something with lots of plug-in things, then I'd be better off to have the male as the thing fixed to your case, and then have these as your plug-in things, because I've got 3 of these, 1 of these, and if you're going to be having something with changeable bands or settings or component values, then you have the one that you've only got 1 of fitted in your receiver. This is plug-in coils, and then you can use these for plug-in coils, or maybe not. Anyway, if I do a video on this, I'll talk about in more detail what I do, but I will probably not be using plug-in coils, but I will be having plug-in band changing. Anyway, of course, with this was in a cable, and it was quite a well-built cable. it was all embedded plastic, and so I got it out the hacksaw. The thing is, how do you get this free from the cable? So I first of all got out the hacksaw and sawed, and all going around the plastic thing, and there were the little screw things that held this into the socket, and I kept going for ages and ages, and was able to get bits of the plastic body, the shell off, and then underneath there is like this foil that I think provided RF shielding. So this would have been really so it was hard going. And then later on, I found that there were all these wires. I got down to the wires, but it was all embedded in some sort of epoxy or glue or something. So I thought, well, okay, how do we get to all these wires and preferably get the wires off so I could solder stuff to this? And so I thought, okay, we'll put this in the oven, not the microwave oven, the conventional oven. And I did, and to try and make the thing, it sort of got a bit softer. So I thought, okay, this was good. And I had it on a baking tray and then some baking paper. Baking paper turned out not to be a good idea. So so this started to melt, which was good. So I sort of grabbed this out of the oven, handling it with a towel, and then this was all stuck to the baking paper, and then fragments of the baking paper dropped off and made contact with the because I've got an electric oven, with the electric element in the oven. So we actually had flames jumping around, including on the kitchen floor, and there was a towel that I was able to douse it with. So yeah, had a bit of action with, for a couple of seconds, a few flames and things. And anyway, I was able to get some of this guff out with this as I molted this. Of course, I didn't want to have it so hot that I'd melt all the stuff in between the pins. Luckily, I sort of picked this out and rescued this. So yeah, although there's still a lot of gunk in between the pins, you can actually solder stuff to it. And then later on, I got soldering iron and just sort of fingers pulled out the stuff. So there's still stuff in between it, but you'd still be able to make contact with your various wires and things. So yeah, that's a bit of a story about using the oven and trying to melt this. Maybe a hot air gun would work. Maybe this would be too hot for this, to try and get all the adhesive stuff. But anyway, this is a very well built connector, and anyway, hopefully I'll use it for an upcoming project, so that will make the effort worthwhile. Anyway, there were some questions after all that rant. So from Carl, simple RTTY transceiver. Yeah, well, there's not a lot of RTTY activity here. I know that VK5GR is quite active in it. There's RTTY contests every now and then. You could build a double sideband type thing and pipe audio into it. If you had something like a micro BitX, you could just pump audio into that. I'd be a bit worried with the duty cycle of RTTY is 100%, so you might have to drop the power down a bit to stop the power amplifier getting hot. But yeah, I know I have done a video on a very crude way of coupling the audio from a computer into a transceiver, which I've done for FT8 and JS8. So there's a video on that. Microwave Activity Day, 23 on 23. No, I haven't done that. Fortress of Solitude. I would like to get on 23 centimeters one day. It gives you extra points in a VHF field day. I sort of like the idea of a frequency tripler from a Baofeng or something, so you can at least get on FM. I can already receive 23 centimeters. I did a video where I used a RTL 2832 dongle, and I, because we're in Melbourne, unfortunately, in eastern suburbs of Melbourne, there is a beacon on 23 centimeters. And so I went to near the beacon, and just with a crude little antenna, I was able to hear that on the RTL. It's not very, this particular one was a cheap one. It wasn't very stable. It would sometimes drift 5 kilohertz off. Anyway, I've done a video of it. It's really quite interesting. So, yeah, but yeah, 23 would be quite good for going up a hill and making a few contacts. So it's one of these things, and eventually maybe, but yeah, could be a lot of fun. Safety videos for home brewing, yeah. And thanks for the congratulations. If you've just joined, I'm Peter VK3YE. And how long have we been going for? Well, it doesn't actually tell me. And I think, oh yeah, here we are, 55 minutes. Yeah, and I'm live, so you can ask me questions and whatever down in the chat. Now, this was a question that relates to a question I got here on the chat just a few minutes ago. Ever had problems at airport security when carrying electronic radio gear? That's here we are. That's the little question I asked on the YouTube channel. And anyway, yeah, tech tinkering. Went through security as a kid with a big bunch of key rings and a torch in my pocket. Set off the metal detector. The guy searched me, took the torch apart. I thought it was fun, but my mum was not impressed. I had a similar experience when I was young. I was given a little electronics thing when I did go overseas by the people I was staying at. And it was just like a wooden board with some nails and parts. And anyway, yeah, they were security interested in that. Louise, is it discouraged or not good advice to use a long wire antenna with a QRP radio? Yeah, no, long wire is fine. Yeah, if you can, make it a half wavelength long, and yeah, make sure you've got a good antenna coupler. Some people use something that's fixed, because half a wavelength long will be high impedance, so you can't just connect it into the back of the radio. If it's a quarter wavelength, it won't be as efficient. You might be able to connect it into the radio. There'll be possibly a small antenna mismatch, but again, I'd recommend a small antenna coupler. But yeah, an end-fed half wave is fine. If it's a bit longer, a little bit shorter, that'll be okay. A full one wavelength can actually give you a bit of gain. I've done videos where you have it like an inverted V with a big pole in the middle. And in fact, a half wave on 7 megahertz is a full wave on 14 megahertz. So it can give you some gain on 14 megahertz. So that's probably my go-to antenna. So yeah, done a lot of videos. Also my books, hand-carried QRP antennas, talks a lot about this, as does my second book, More Hand-Carried QRP Antennas. So yeah, hopefully that's of help along with the videos. Getting back to airport security, yeah, VK2IG, very cautious, had customs declarations, but no one looked at them. Customs officers, yeah, sometimes they looked at my Sony ICF SW7600 and wanted to buy it. He said he was also interested in buying any alcohol in my luggage. Yeah. Edwin PDO SOT went from Amsterdam to Riga and had a very good experience. They were well prepared, duct tape on battery terminals and passed with flying colours. So yeah, that was a European internal flight. Doug Fredericks, California to Paris, Paris to Munich, with the ICOM 705 and button wires and connectors. And they never questioned the 705. They looked at the lightsaver and read the specs to check it was below the maximum capacity. So no problems. Security guy was fascinated. Talked to the hat travels from New Zealand. electronic cases, development systems, they may look suspicious. You put them into checked baggage to avoid check-in issues. Checked baggage always gets open. It's funny, some people say you put them into checked baggage, but we, particularly in Australia, there's been very topical for airlines to be losing baggage. Like Qantas just recently has had a very bad name. They outsource their baggage handling. They try and do it on the cheap to save a few dollars. And there's been a lot of cases of people's baggage going missing or ending up where they weren't and all that. So yeah, you are really taking a bit of a risk in that regard. So whether you carry it with you or take it in checked baggage, different views on that. But yeah, Qantas has a bit of a bad reputation for that lately. Anyway, even things marked static, sensitive, or fragile are given the Air New Zealand drop kick around the room, then mixed with my underwear and stuffed back into a mess. Often they do not lock the bag again, and they even left the zip open once. So, yeah, baggage handlers can be pretty careless. Okay. From Vojislav Ridge, lots of V's and J's there. So anyway, my Belka DX receiver almost got seized last autumn at the Hurghada airport in Egypt. It looks a bit suspicious and not like an ordinary shortwave receiver. So the security guy asked me, "Is this a bomb?" A few times. They have to do that several times. Then I had to fill out a form, got a special sticker, and that it passed the extra check. And the guy told me to leave my pen as other people need to write too. So next time, bringing only a cheaper and more radio-like receiver. I've flown with my HT many times, other than complaints about the battery or forgetting to take it back. They ignored the radio. KF5 HCR. I flew from Tel Aviv with my homebrew HF Signals 40-meter SSB transceiver, and I've seen your comment, Paul. I'll get onto that in a moment. Stowed in a plastic Rubbermaid food box, 2 sets of 18 650s and a rat's nest of wires. Got to get undressed and inspected upon arrival in Austria, and then detained again in Newark, NJ. So as long as I had my radio as carry-on, no problem. But when I got checked on, different story. Probably about 2 hours to get through immigration. So yeah, that was from KF5 HCR. Yep, something that looks homebrew does look maybe not so good. Ian Brace packed an infed antenna carry on out of Melbourne, which raised questions and was referred to the supervisor. Risk I might threaten someone with a long piece of wire. Fortunately, common sense won and they let me through. But next time, I will leave all wire in checked luggage. And Nigel Young had a bad experience in Dubai. 2 Baofengs confiscated, even a telescopic pole on another trip. Batteries, especially 18 650s, a packet of Carver Australia. So yeah, lots of things from Z01 and AY. Okay, well, quite a few comments. That's good if you've just joined. I am live, and I'm Peter, VK3YE. Hello to Paul, CX3DRG, and in a land far, far away. Yeah. CX3, don't know where CX is, but yeah, a long way away. XVK2 TPJ and VK2 ACF. Ian Andrews had my X-Acto knife blades. Yep, I can't see. Yeah, they wouldn't like knives, would they? Although that was checked in. Hello to Paula Bean from the Netherlands. And Paul, VK3HN. Like to see the build and test the stability and usability of a 2 meg PTO. A PTO, by the way, is a permeability tuned oscillator. So tuning the coil and I remember there was a kit the QRP Club sold in the 80s called the Club Communicator, and that had a permeability tuned oscillator using a brass bolt that you tuned in and out. And the good thing about that is that would also give you an inbuilt vernier reduction. So you're able to achieve a easy tuning, which was good for a homebrew transmitter or receiver without a vernier reduction drive. So yeah, Also means you don't need a variable capacitor. And yet Farhand has a thing, I think it's called the Daylight. I think it's actually a monoband transceiver, a bit like the BitX, but it uses a lot of the design things in it are different to things like I think it's the Minima, or the micro, not the micro SDX, the micro BitX. That's right. Micro BitX was the multiband thing. But the Daylight was a back to basics type thing. I think that's the same thing I'm talking about, Paul. It uses 3D printing and a tuning bolt. Be interesting to see the longevity of 3D printing stuff. I'm not sure if the plastic is as rigid as other types of plastic. Yep, Art of Engineering regens are amazing, sensitive but simple. I hope to, if I'm successful with this regen. It appears in the latest Scratch. I built it. It worked first time. It's a bit less. Some regens are a bit tricky, but this one wasn't tricky, and you don't have to be careful with how you set the coil up, because if you have the coil wrongly set up in some regen receivers, it won't oscillate. It won't work. So yeah. Regens are quite a bit of fun, maybe more for casual listening. In fact, I was if you watch my video, it's been super popular. The video I did on Shortwave Australia, in the middle of the video, I went to using a regen, and the reception was fantastic. It was as good as my FRG7. Maybe if the signal faded out or got a bit weak, the FRG7 might be slightly better, but yeah, no, the regen was great. Now, of course, the Shortwave Australia is on 4835. It operates for 5 hours a day from 0500 to 1500 UTC, and that is not far from the 5 megahertz amateur band. And I asked a question on that. Have you ever operated in the 5 megahertz band? For a while, it looks like we in Australia were going to get it, but we didn't. And I think there's other services that have it allocated. So yeah, I think New Zealand had 5 megahertz for a while. Don't know their situation. I'm not sure if they still have it. Anyway, my survey results on 5 megahertz. Most popular was no, don't have equipment for it, because not all transceivers have 5 megahertz. And that was 31% of you. Another 22%, probably mostly Australians. We don't have 5 megahertz access in our country. Closely followed by 18% who occasionally used 5 megahertz. Then 16% weren't interested. Another 13% said an amazing band too few knew about. Yeah, the propagation at 5 megahertz is quite interesting. Like during the day, there's going to be times where 3.5 megahertz can be a bit noisy and not so good beyond a few kilometers from your transmitting location. But 5 megahertz might be good for like 200 kilometers. And even during the day, maybe a bit more. I remember as a kid, there was a coastal station that transmitted on 4.5 megahertz. It was VIP in Perth, and I'd always hear that, even if there was no activity on 80 meters, which there mostly wasn't during the day. So yeah, 5 can be a great band, and at night it can get DX, maybe not as good as 7 megahertz for that. But yeah, sometimes as you're coming in towards sunset, you can have some really strong signals on 5 meg, and yeah, so Shortwave Australia transmits there, and I had a regen receiver that works quite well there. Now, N. Andrews gives a helpful hint on traveling. I've always used stick-on labels, packed radio gear, and the tags name, use and function, ham radio, etc. From Louise, would a 40-meter directional antenna with a reflector on the ground and director pointing at the sky almost at 90 degrees work as an NVIS antenna? I haven't tried it, but apparently it would. Yeah, it's a lot of effort because you've got to get the dipole up, quite high. You'd need to be horizontal. I have seen, there's been articles in QST describing it. You'd probably have separation of like a quarter of a wavelength. You might have your reflector. Maybe your reflector wouldn't be straight on the ground. Maybe it would be 2 or 3 meters high. Your main element might be like 10 to 13 meters high. That could work. So yeah, potentially, but quite a bit of effort in putting it up. And yeah, CX Uruguay, yeah, between Argentina and Brazil. So thanks for that. Now, if you've just joined, I'm Peter, VK3YE, and yeah, we've got a bit of a chat session going. This is Doubtfire. Yep, so just as I hit 20,000 subscribers, so I thought I'd have a live thing. And I'm including a lot of stuff from the community tab where I've been asking various questions. And one of the things I ask people about, you probably can't read it, but what piece of radio or electronic equipment do you most regret getting rid of? So you quite a few comments there. From M0JSX, I miss getting my FT817ND, but partly paid for my IC705, a worthwhile upgrade. I regret selling my FL110 amplifier, 100-watt amplifier that would have been useful with the IC705. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, the FL110 came out, I think, about the time that Yaesu had the FT7, so they would have made a good pair. But that paid for my ID52. Don't know what that is, but yeah, swings and roundabouts. Tech tinkering, it was a GRE PSR 255 scanner. Pretty basic, but nostalgic value. Ended up buying one of eBay. I have another Tandy scanner. Can't remember which, and missed that too. Brendan, KD8ZM. I didn't get rid of it, but if anything else ever happens to my KX3, I will immediately place an order for another one. They're that good. Merltron1, my Coda Mini Clipper, 1-valve radio. I think that was something from about the 60s. I think it might have been a Regen receiver, a first proper shortwave receiver. So yeah, regrets getting rid of that. While Don Collins regretted getting rid of a realistic D160, or maybe it's a DX160. Hello to Ham Radio Dude as well, and Paula Dean, thanks for the congratulations. ALZE regrets most getting rid of Baofeng UV5R because for all its functions, the ICOM 705 doesn't have, which is the LED light. Yes, in Baofengs, the torch is often a most popular function. Chris Lent. Now, Chris Wilson had a bad experience to a friend who would have to be an ex-friend by now. Definitely. What sort of friend does this to you? Anyway, Chris lent his KWM2A to a friend who disappeared with it never to be seen again. And that is some pretty serious and rare Collins type gear. So highly sought after. And a friend did a runner on that and very bad. He also borrowed a service manual from the local TAFE, which he also had when he left town. So yeah, bit of a thief there. Better that he's not your friend anymore. 96 Just Stuff. Most regretted getting rid of his Spark Gap transmitter after outlawing them in 1934. And Chris has replied, you can relieve the glory days with a few reclaimed microwave transformers. Yeah, you can find them on the street probably. Some silver-plated Christmas decorations and a danger sign bowed from the fence from a local Osgrid substation. Get a Marconi replica key and fill the airwaves. Bonus points if you borrow the entire substation. Sterling Lombard, Yaesu FT200. Most regrets getting rid of, well, AM Radio Podcast, ICOM W32A, which I think was a handheld. And Nick Kendall, FT FT897, most regret getting rid of. Some good response to people there. If you've just joined, I'm Peter VK3YE and AK3YE, and you can ask me, feel free to ask me any questions there in the chat. But yeah, just thought we'd have a free-flowing live session on hitting 20,000 subscribers. Now, this was something, again, in the chat thing, I asked people, no guarantees, but I'll ask anyway, what topic would you like me to do a video? So there's me down at the beach doing a video, and that got a huge response. But I don't think I'll do lots of great ideas. A lot of times when you ask people for ideas, you might not do the exact thing that they suggest, but it might give you inspiration to do other things. Some things I might have to buy equipment and all that, so I might not be inclined to do that very much. Is it true I live in Frankston? Well, I'm pretty close to Frankston, actually. In fact, my nearest J-Car electronics shop is in Frankston, and I actually, for the first time, actually rode the bike, because they've actually built a new bike path, so you can go almost to Frankston, not down to the town centre, but to the northern outskirts of Frankston on this bike path that's pretty much continuous all the way. So I did that a few days ago. So yeah, I was able to ride down to Frankston and go down to the J-Car shop and buy a few little electronic bits. So maybe there'll be a video on some of those coming up in the future. I might finish my regenerative receiver first. Anyway, I'm just waffling now. But yeah, topics that you'd like to see a video on. Yeah, John West, I'd like to see a high Q remotely tunable long wave loop. Yeah, Paula, yeah, nice living next to the beach. Yeah, a little bit cold at this time of year, but over summer it's a pretty good lifestyle. We've got here. I've got the beach basically on one side. We've got water on four sides basically. Regrets 897, 757. Yeah, mid 1980s type thing. Yeah, I'm not sure how, if they're receivers and things. They were sort of an early, not. I think the first one was the ICOM 701 in about 1979, but mid 80s synthesized gear. I'm not sure if they're as good as some of the later DDS stuff. I don't know about phase noise and the VFO. But yeah, Paula, in relation to location, yeah, on one side we've got water. In fact, we've got water on all four sides of where I am. If I go a little bit north, I've got one creek. I've never operated from the creek to the north. If I go a little bit south, I've got the Patterson River, which I've done videos from here there. And if I go to the east, then there's wetlands, swamps that I've operated from there. And that's actually a good DX location for working into Europe. It's a very short walk, bike ride. Yeah, it must be cold winter. Actually, this summer or this winter has been pretty mild, at least I think. I may be plugging up a window and sorting that out has been helpful as well. But I haven't done much operating portable. But yeah, no, it seems to have been a pretty mild winter. It's almost a bit like spring. We've had some sunny days and some flowers have been out. So yeah. And if you're live, you can ask me anything. And I've just got up. I haven't even properly brushed my hair actually. It's 8:25 a.m. local time here in Melbourne. So I got up just before 7 and thought, just on the impulse, I thought, well, we'll do a live video. Anyway, as the topic was all about you, we'll go back to what topics would you like me to do a video on? Right, John West would say high Q remotely tuned long wave loop. Yeah, that would be a super, super popular video. Anything that you do with magnetic loops, people love them. Remotely tunable, you need to do stuff with Arduino and motors and remote control. I should do more of that, but I haven't. Yeah, I'm a bit lazy because I do have a bit of a yard here. So I'm in a situation where it picks up a lot of noise, but I do have a wire antenna outside. So a loop, I'm not forced to use a loop, whereas people in an apartment would be. But yeah, a long wave loop would be quite a lot of fun. There's not so much on long wave. There are still some VHF beacons. I should do low frequency navigation beacons. There's not as many as there used to be. I've done videos on what we can hear, and but it could be worth doing another video on that with a loop. Giova for 61. What do you think about making a little oscillator based on tunnel diodes? Yeah, that would be an interesting novelty. Tunnel diodes were, I think, quite popular in the 1960s for little VHF oscillators and things. They're not quite a mainstream component, but they had some, I think, defense and other applications. Maybe if you did a search on eBay for tunnel diodes. I know that a neighbor of mine, Ralph VK3ZZC, is very keen on tunnel diodes. So yeah, that's sort of a obscure, almost a curiosity. But yeah, a diode, but you can make them oscillate. Bandog, I enjoyed the small bobtail curtains, so would be interested in the VHF Bruce array. Yeah, Bruce array, I think it is basically sort of wires that go in squares, and it's hard to describe, but if you Google Bruce array, yeah, it's a gain antenna for VHF. So yeah, it could be interesting. More techie stuff on antennas. Why having a low SWR? This is from Arnold. Yeah, this would be a popular video. Why having a low SWR does not guarantee you'll be radiating efficiently. Yeah, that's a really, really interesting. Yeah. Always remember, antennas, there's nothing else. Low SWR does not guarantee you'll get out efficiently. Like if you take it to extremes, even a dummy load, low SWR, sure, wide bandwidth tick, but it won't get out. The characteristic impedance of what the characteristic impedance of a dipole is, it's 72 ohms. I think if it's in free space, it will be different if it's near the ground. A quarter wave ground plane, I think that's about 35 ohm. So both of those will be an okay match into 50 ohm coax. A folded dipole, when you fold a dipole, that multiplies it by 4. So I think you're up to 288 ohm. So you can use 300 ohm feed line there. And how the location of a feed point can change the impedance, like an off-centered dipole. Yeah, basically, if you've got a wire that's half wavelength long, its lowest impedance. Okay, you've asked me to do a video. I'll make this bit is almost going to be that video. Anyway, if you have a half wavelength of wire and you cut it in the middle and you have your feed line there, that's the point where it's the lowest impedance if you've got a quarter wavelength either side. If you join that back up and you have the feed line right at the end, so it's an end-fed half wavelength, that's where your maximum impedance is. It's going to be thousands of ohms. And if you move it so it's sort of in between that point, so it's off-center, then you'll have an impedance that's in the middle, maybe a few hundred ohms if it's fed like 1/3 or 2/3. And another characteristic of that is that it will also work on even harmonics. Like if you've got one for 7 megahertz, it will also work on 14 and 28 megahertz. So that could be useful. Now, I did a video where I think I called it might have been the clothesline antenna. I set something up on my fence where I had a folded dipole type thing, and I reeled it, and it was made out of wire, and you could sort of had reels at either side or or just using nails in the fence. And anyway, you could move its feed point. So it was in the middle and then off to one end and then near to one end. And that would change the, you get different resonant frequencies and impedances and all that. Anyway, I've done a video on all that. So look up that video and that could be interesting. And VK2IG commented on that. How did the height above ground change the feed point impedance? Yeah, that does affect it. A lot of people quote free space feed point impedance, but don't account for what happens when dipole isn't in free space. Yeah. Off license, transverter construction. How do you get on 2 meters SSB without buying another transceiver? Yeah, I think the FT817 has probably made us a bit lazy because that has 2 meters SSB, but yeah, potentially a little transverter could be a fun project. You could even do something just for the transmit side and have a plug-in RTL thing for the receive. I recently did a video of the RTL receiving 2 meters SSB, and it was quite successful. Whiteboard sessions. Oh, lots of comments from Damien Cannon. By the way, if you've just tuned in, these are comments from people on future videos I'd like me to do. Methods on how to learn Morse code. Well, I learned Morse code the wrong way. So, yeah, Morse code's basically a sound language. I learned it visually, so I memorized looking at bits of paper with the dots and dashes written. So for a lot of the time, including in the exam, I wrote the dot and dash and then translated it into the letter, which slows things up a lot, especially if you go in your high speed. So that's not the right way of doing things. HF band propagation. I've been doing some series on different bands like 80 meters, 40 meters, 20 meters. They're called the foundation guides. You can see them on my website, vk3y.com. I talk about it a bit in my QRP book. Adam's just asked a question. Do you still use 2 and 70 centimeter repeaters? I'm very seldom on a repeater, maybe once a year or something if I'm out. Most of the time in Melbourne, I monitor our simplex frequency, 146.5, which is the main simplex frequency in Australia. The main rig I've got doesn't have tone. I have built a little board thing, but it's an external unit and a bit clunky. And most of our repeaters need you to have a subtone to get into them. So yeah, I just leave the rig on simplex, and sometimes you get people that go up on a hill and doing SOTA and really enjoy simplex 2 meters. So yeah, this is what I mostly do. And I monitor 146/500 if you're in the Melbourne area. In fact, I think I'm monitoring it now. If you're nearby, put out a call on 146.5 if you're in the Melbourne area. I may well hear you. Now, have I turned the volume up or down? I will just go in the other room and I'll grab a drink and I'll check. Yep, I'm monitoring 146/500 right now if you're in Melbourne on 2 meters simplex. And Carl mentions, yes, more mag loops, maybe a multi-turn loop. It's funny. People have said various things about multi-turn loops, like do they increase efficiency or not? Like you've got more of the copper in there, so it's a greater resistive efficiency, but a greater resistance, DC resistance. But there's, but I think there are possibly some other benefits of multi-turn loops. There's some articles around the place. I can't think of any by name. But yeah, multi-turn loops is a potential. I saw a video. I can't remember who it was now, but there's a few videos on YouTube of multi-turn loops. How does an antenna work? Oh, there's some deep theory stuff there. Beverage antennas, yeah. That would be great antennas for receiving lower HF bands. You need a big area. I don't have anything in my yard's nowhere near big enough. I could put an antenna maybe along the fence. There's sort of a horse paddock not far from here, and maybe I could put a beverage on the fence post, but it might be interfered with by the fence wires. Maybe I could just tap into the fence. Coax collinear antennas. Yeah, that could be a handy thing for 2 meters. BLR, I'd like to see you do a video on how to wrap a toroid and test its inductance as well as the unknown impedance for a commercial crystal filter you might want to put in a project. Potentially. Actually, the sort of person who'd have stuff on that, have a look at W2AEW. There's a lot of videos on those sorts of workshop basics, you might call it, testing inductance of toroids. But yeah, KE0WPC has lots of ideas. Building a beacon for the 10-meter band. Well, one of the really simple things you can do with a 10-meter beacon is you can sometimes get crystal oscillator modules on 28.224, which is a good frequency for a 10-meter beacon. And you can... and yeah, that can be a real, and you could just key it with an Arduino, and that would be a great beacon on 10 meters. It would give you a little bit of power. In fact, I'll give you there's a bit of a sneak preview. I have done a few older videos on crystal oscillator modules, but I have I done this recently or not, or is it upcoming? Sometimes when you do videos, you forget whether they're published or not, as I've got quite a few videos upcoming. No, it's coming up. I have now this is going to be really something to look forward to. It's probably going to be in about 4 or 5 days, but yeah, I'm going to do a video on a crystal oscillator module on 80 meters. And the range I get is amazing. You can buy these cheap crystal oscillator modules. Just in case a lot of people watch the video and want to buy them, have a look on eBay, order a few crystal oscillator modules, especially if they're in an amateur band, like 3.68 megahertz is in the 80 meter band. So that's a good frequency to do experiments. But yeah, I've got it coming up in a few days. Video, really look forward to it. Paula Bean has asked a question on significant difference between PL connections and BNC connections. On HF, not really. BNC might be slightly lower loss at UHF. Like the UHF, the real serious people in UHF, they use N connections. And they are a bit stronger. Like BNC is not quite as strong. It's easy to quickly, because it's got the bayonet connection, whereas the PLs and the N type are just screw in, so that probably holds a bit stronger for a more permanent thing. But yeah, I wouldn't bother too much. Losses on HF 70 centimeters. If you're looking into serious work, then yep, an N connection if you're a real connoisseur. But if all you've got is a BNC and PL 259, you can use that. Now getting back to KE0WPC, ways of making a dummy load without 50 ohm resistors. Super poor radiating antenna. Well, I did years ago. There's a really popular video. It was called VUDUDX. Yeah, so search in YouTube VUDUDX antenna. I went down to the beach with a really mediocre antenna. I didn't use 50 ohm resistors, but I used resistors of a higher value and had a wire between them. And yep, I actually made contacts on it with QRP. And it was broadband. So yep, that was a really poor quality antenna that I still got contacts on. Making transmitters out of junk. Yeah, good topic, and it's popular. I think I've done a few with that. Setting up a beacon on a high place and seeing how its height affects propagation compared with closer to the ground. yeah, that would be a bit of fun. I've done a few videos of like little. In fact, if you look at my UHF module big series, have a look at my website vk3y.com. I've used the UHF modules on 433 megahertz and done range tests, and I think some of those from memory, have I put the module up on a squid pole or something? But there's potential to do that. Yeah, some good ideas there. Now, don't locks VK1DON. Jay's asked, what do I do for a day job? Yeah, I'm self-employed. Used to be a transport planner. Before that, worked on the railways, also worked in electronics and other things. But yeah, I'm self-employed, so I can pretty much do what I want. Yeah, so that's been good. So I've been in that position for nearly 4 years, and yeah, certainly don't. I enjoyed my job and all that, but certainly don't regret doing what I'm doing now. Anyway, from VK1DON had a really good topic, physical or electronic QSL cards. I'm a bit apathetic, but yeah, if it's someone for your first contact, then yeah, try and send them a paper QSL card. First contacts is really important. They've got a memento and all that. But yeah, QSL cards, yeah, you can either basically, for someone who doesn't know what a QSL card is, it's basically a card confirming a radio contact. You could use, personally, I don't see the need for them, but something like FT8 that's computer-based. But yeah, you can, some awards need QSL cards, or electronic logs or that sort of thing. I'm a bit apathetic on that. But yeah, paper QSL cards, basically a confirmation that you've made a radio contact with the other guy. Or you can have electronic QSLing, which saves. One of the big costs of QSL cards is having to print a physical card and also sending it to the other person. You can make it a bit cheaper if you are in a QSL bureau. There's basically two ways of QSLing: direct, which is sending a card to them by post, or the QSL bureau, which often, if you're in a radio club or radio society, there'll be a QSL bureau. It takes a lot longer, but a lot cheaper. So two ways of paper QSLing, although there's also electronic QSLing, which is sort of popular, but it reminds you too much of all the documenting and logging. Reminds me too much of like work and all that. And yes, I should probably document all my contacts, but I don't. So yeah. VK2IG suggests me making a video on the uncomfortableness of random seating options when operating portable. Thank you, Mike. I just can't be bothered taking a chair or whatever. Your first HF antenna. Tom A wanted me to do a video on the for American amateurs, the differences between various radio societies, like between the WIA and RASA. Well, I sort of did a video on. I think there's only one society that people should join, and that's one that is called the Radio Amateurs Institute of Australia, and the Serious Society for Ham Operators. Being third is important, and I did a video of that. So that's the society that everyone should join, because being third is important. Rafael Pinto suggested I do a video on a simple dipole. Maybe, yeah. Although I have done a video on a link dipole, which is pretty simple. Competitions and fun activities from Brian M suggested I do a video of. Yep. For club members, that would be fun. I recently did some videos of a little fox hunt on 40 meters. Adam says, I'm on 40 meters right now, 7125. When you are home, what's your favorite HF antennas? I'm thinking of making end-fed antennas, done heaps of videos on them, heaps in my books. End-fed antennas basically are pretty good. I mostly use them when I'm portable. I use them most often. at home I've got a G5RV because that's fed at the center and that's most convenient for where I am at home. But a lot of the time in fed. Don't know where you are on 7125 AM. If you're in Australia, I can go out and turn the FRG7 on and see if there's anything on 7125 AM. If you're not in Australia, then it's not really worth, I won't hear you. But within Southeast Australia, I may well hear you. So, so let me know. In fact, I might, because I am still monitoring 146.5, I might go out and fire up the FRG7. Oh no, that might just introduce a bit of background noise. Anyway, if anyone's watching and wants me to fire up 7125 just as listening on AM, if they're within Southeast VK, then let me know in the comments and I will. Otherwise, I won't. If you've just joined, I am live. I'm Peter VK3YE, and answering various questions and also looking at various survey or various answers where I've asked people about various things about their amateur activity, what they'd like in future videos. So I'm just going through some of those. Fun activities from Brian M. The video I did on fox hunting could be helpful. And thanks to Digital Stump for the congratulations on the 20,000 subscribers. Fox hunting, I did a video on a transmitter and an attenuator for that, so that could be worth looking up. HF antennas for tight spaces, Tomic, GADDEC, for small roofs and balconies. I have done a video on that, so have a look under that. I've got playlists for some of the topics and things. Definitely a popular topic. When I'm out and about, from Michael Simmons, do I ever get challenged in what you're doing from council workers? Yeah, we don't have council workers really. They just worry about parking. And the only council workers we have here, I think, are parking inspectors. And as I'm walking down to the beach from here, it's not really an issue. Police officers, hardly ever see them. You sometimes see them in the summer months. The beach patrol, not really. So throwing antennas over trees. I normally take a squid pole, so I'm normally not throwing antennas over trees. If there's a park bench, I might tie a pole to it. I don't have really any problems with officialdom. Portable HF antenna for 20 meters. I've done a few. This is a question from John Ward. A delta loop has been successful. Otherwise, some of my magnetic loops have been good. Even just a dipole lashed on a squid pole can work on 20 meters. SDR Qrp radios. Question from Andrew. If someone's willing to send me a true SDX or whatever, then maybe I generally as far as buying radios go, I'm pretty happy with what I've got, so I'm not a big buyer of new radios. But there's been some good reviews on them. From Brian Field, simplest antenna that will give decent DX without spinning all day on modeling. Done quite a lot on portable DX antennas. Adam, in the Yarra ranges, okay. Well, I will actually maybe 80 meters will work, but for now, I'll be back in a moment, but I'll fire up the FRG7 in the other room, and I'll be monitoring 7125, and that's a frequency that a lot of people use on AM. So I will have so bear for me for a while, and I'll set the FRG7 up. All right, I am that horrible noise that you might be able to hear in the background is 7125. So it's a horrendous noise, S9 plus. I doubt that I'd hear anything, but yeah, Adam, if you want to send a signal, I'll hear you, or probably not. But anyway, that's it. It's actually a bit noisy, so I'll leave it on for a little while, then I'll turn it off. And anyway, if you've just turned on, I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm live. And thanks to all who have subscribed for reaching the 20,000. Okay. Do you have a preference for a vertical HF antenna to cover most of the bands for home-based use? Oh, can I hear anything on 7 megahertz or not? No. I thought I heard something there. And thank you to Paula for subscribing a long time ago. Vertical HF antenna. I did a video on my worst HF antenna, which was actually a vertical. Anyway, all that noise is distracting, so I'm going to turn the receiver off and spend all my attention to the discussion here. And thanks to CMill for the 20,000 congratulations. Now, vertical HF antennas. Okay, well, verticals are known, have a bit of a reputation for picking up noise, and there's heaps of noise here. But if you can get it above the roof line, if you've got a big metal roof that you could have the vertical above, then it could potentially be a really good DX antenna. In fact, if you've got a noisy location, you could, although it's not ideal, you could have your vertical antenna transmit from home and be listening on a remote SDR or something like that. Anyway, I would say a end-fed half wave would be an effective vertical antenna. High impedance, so you would need some sort of matching unit. It's a little bit trickier to put up, but a vertical dipole fed with open wire feed line, if you made it so that it was, problem is that it's a bit tricky feeding it in the middle, whereas with verticals, it's much easier to feed at the base. But if you, and you'd have to bring your feed line off at right angles to the center of it to avoid the radiation pattern being messed up, and you'd have problems with RF pickup getting into the feed line and all that sort of stuff. But you could have balanced feed line, a vertical dipole, and you'd be able to tune in a range of bands with quite good efficiency and have quite low angle radiation. Yeah, Slim Jim is quite good. I did a video on a Kikes made a flower pot antenna actually, and I went pedestrian mobile on 2 meters. So I had the bow thing and the flower pot and had some simplex contacts on that. And I had good height, even though I was walking. I had good height because I had a squid pole in the backpack and the what is my squeaky? Yeah, you might want to refresh my. I think I know what it is. Yes, that little box. Anyway, yeah, and anyway, I had the squid pole in a backpack, so I had pretty good height, even though I was walking along. But that only worked because I was out in the open by the beach where I could. Okay. Yes, that's right. It's the 555 that detects RF. It's got a diode in it, a 555, and it's really good for testing for for testing if you've got RF floating around, whether it's your Baofeng handheld or an HF rig or whatever, the Squeaky will work quite well. And Paul 3HN, yeah, 80 and 160 AM with the, yeah, I've done that as well. I've called CQ on 80 meters CW, and yeah, using the VK5 ARG, because you can just build it's amazing. You can just build a 2-transistor CW transmitter on 80 meters, call CQ, be listening on a SDR. There's a little bit of a time lag, but overall it's pretty good. And yeah, there's a timeout. I think it's 30 minutes, so you have to refresh that. But yeah, the VK5 ARG SDR is really good. Okay. As far as suggested videos, I'm still going through this list. From G4 KDX Live, a simple 160 meter transmitter. Possibly, I think I've described a AM one that was like half a watt. It was a couple of transistors and an LM386 as the AM modulator. And Anne Lee suggested a 100 kilohertz marker generator. Yeah, well, but then suggested building on a cutting board. Problem is that to do that, you need a 100 kilohertz crystal, which is found in old equipment, not easily obtainable now. But yeah, the idea of a marker generator is a crystal oscillator that gives you signals every 100 kilohertz, so you can more easily calibrate homebrew receivers. Problem is building it on a cutting board is that a marker generator built from modern components will probably have a crystal that's say 4 megahertz or 10 megahertz, and then IC frequency dividers to divide it down to 1 megahertz, then 100 kilohertz, whatever. Yep. And those dividers using ICs, so you've got pins every 2.5 millimeter, so you really need to use matrix board or some other circuit board, maybe a printed circuit board. Definitely no good for cutting boards because the screws are too far apart. Then there was a suggestion about building a small valve receiver or transceiver, which I have done so for a receiver. In fact, it was a one that used 12 volts on the high tension. So yeah, that was a bit of a novelty project, but a fun little receiver using a 12AU7. And there was a Lasno wanted me to do videos about bands below 160 meters. I have done a video on transmitting whisper on 472 kilohertz on 630 meters. In fact, I've got a 630 meter CW transmitter. Maybe I should set up, I could potentially use that with KHZ's SDR. I wonder if he would be able to hear me. That would be an interesting little test. I do have a transmitter that I built for 630 meters. I've never had a contact on it. Yeah, I've a couple of people asking about videos on topics I've already done. Bobtail Curtain, I've got a feature. Poxy radios. Yeah, the radio I called the Poxy. It's a bit of a play on the Pixie, but it was like a really simple 2-transistor CW transceiver, which I've had a few contacts. And Ben Koziak, good that you're working on the 2-transistor rig. So I hope that works and has a lot of fun. So yeah, if you've just joined, I'm Peter, VK3YE, and I am live, and I've just been going through various feedback from people. If you want to leave feedback or participate in various of the surveys, then the community tab on YouTube channel is where you can do that. Okay, we're up to 15 or 16 views, so not the most popular, but I think people are dipping in and out. This is sort of a bit of an inconvenient time for Europe now, quite late at night. Might be starting to get good for the west coast of the US now, I think almost, in the afternoon still. And so yeah, if there's any comments, leave them in the chat. does your Radio Shack gear have any vacuum tube gear? And 67% of you are solid state, 100%. And another 5%. Now, I thought this would be a higher number because, a lot of people have rigs like FT101s or TS520s with rigs that are mostly solid state but have tubes in the final stage, but only 5% of you did. So that was quite amazing. I thought it would be a lot more. And however, there was another 13% that had solid all their rigs were solid state, but their linear amplifiers used valves. Then 10% were what I called boat anchor heaven. So nearly everything is all vacuum tube. And then there was 4% computer monitor or TV is still cathode ray tube. And interesting survey on solid state. 67% of you are all solid state in the shack. Most recent radio project. I asked people that. Got some 29 comments there. That's pretty good. Now, Tech Tinkering made a Parrot repeater for PMR 446. I would absolutely love to build a Parrot repeater. I've had ideas of Parrot repeaters. They could, they basically take a few seconds of audio that they record and retransmit. So you can't have a leisurely contact on them, but they are super simple to build, particularly with modern receiving or modern voice recorder modules you can get. And it would be, imagine if you had a Parrot repeater that was crossband between 27 megahertz and UHF. You could have it receiving on both and then transmitting on both. So you could do a sort of a crossband thing. So you could transmit on 27 meg and come out on UHF and vice versa. Anyway, Parrot repeater would be a lot of fun. It's one of my to-do projects. But yeah, I used an Arduino-based thing to control it. Now, Dylan Gnarly D built a K6ARK 3-band half-wave NFED with micro traps and 4091 balance. So there we are for people asking about NFEDs before. K6ARK 3-band half-wave NFED with micro traps, 4091. Apparently it works well. So there's an answer to your question. Carl Hill, any more ideas on the Pixie CW filter? Amplifier stage, wider VFO. I have got a feature on my website about making the Pixie less appalling, and that summarizes what I think about the Pixie. They've got a pretty average, terrible receiver, actually. You want frequency agility. I think you should probably start all over again, unless you think of it as a novelty project. But yeah, have a look at my website, vk3ye.com, and there's a feature and video about improving your Pixie. And now Andrew Ronald built both a Pixie transceiver and a Frog Sounds transceiver. Both failed, and I think some of the components were bad. At least you didn't waste too much money in it. Peter VK3ZPF built most recent project was an L match for an inverted L antenna, 4 toggle switches and a variable capacitor. Yep, fantastic. Really good portable antenna. Ian Mitchell has built a 5-band QRP rig. Now, this is quite a serious rig. It's a hybrid single conversion with 11.059 megahertz IF. The hybrid refers to the spectrum display. So it's an analog radio, but it's got a quadrature sampling detector and a splitter after the first mixer and before the crystal filter. So there's a spectrum display and waterfall processed by the Pico microcontroller. Software isn't complete, but he's made 5 contacts with VK7, VK3, VK1. So well done to Ian Mitchell. Fantastic. And 2 contacts to Spain. That's from VK7IAN. So yeah, anyway, Ian, this was written 7 days ago, but he's going to have the design files on GitHub within a week or so. So it's going to be an open source project, and he wrote that a week ago. So it could be any day now. Fantastic rig from VK7IAN. And in fact, oh look, he's posted. I've started the GitHub repository here, so have a look at that thread, and there's a link. And you can find that in the community section of my YouTube, where I ask people about recent projects. Gilbert Best was assembling a BitX for 144 megahertz. That's pretty ambitious, as described by Firehand in a YouTube video. So he's building that. That'd be a fun project. Ed Beckerich, 40 meter direct conversion CW transmitter. Fantastic. Using a VFO transceiver, no less. Fortress of Solitude, active field strength meter. So far not sensitive when compared to its formerly passive form. So still working on that. Steve GM0HUU, an active CW and audio filter and audio amplifier. Came from an RSGB Radcom, and the audio amplifier is a TD7052A, so it works very well. Yeah, it'd be really handy to put into homebrew rigs, especially rigs that just drive a headphones. You can put in this CW filter and an audio amp and it would work fine. Sebastian Mangelsen has built a QDX from Hans Summers. Chris Wilson, last thing I touched was a single-ended 5-watt guitar amp he's rebuilding. And he's got George VK2AOE's QCX Mini as well, so that should be fun. Nick Kendall built a 49-to-1 Unan with various things, so it works brilliantly. It's hard to go wrong. VK2IG built a DDS RF signal source, 100 kilohertz to 100 megahertz, works great. Minitron 1 built a Sprat 5-watt CW transmitter. VKL Mike, BitX 2040V, working fine. CW Morse decoder, homebrew NorCal generator. Munich man, Roboto 1968. Great to have you comment. Refurbishing an old military radio, an ANTRC 77, with the receiver working. So, yep, transmitters still to be done. So, good luck with that. Bert Class has built a true SDX, getting good results. So that was, and so lots of people building lots of stuff. So that's great. If you've just joined, I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm live, so you can ask me, you can put something in the chat, and yeah, I've just hit 20,000 subscribers, so we thought we'd do a special live thing. We also got we've been going for over 2 hours. Do you have a portable shortwave receiver? What brand and model? A lot of people responded to this as well. So if you're interested in getting a portable shortwave receiver, have a look at all the comments here. A lot of recommendations and things. In fact, I'll be reviewing a shortwave receiver, another shortwave receiver, very cheap, very small, in a few days. So keep a lookout for that. Anyway, PU3HAG says you can't go wrong with the Texung PL330 or XH Data D808. They even receive SSB. And you can get them through AliExpress. Another one is the Belka DX, which does a lot of modes. And it's the size of a pack of cigarettes, but it's like a desktop receiver. Sanjian ATS 909, yeah, that's a good receiver. VK2IG mentions a Sony ICF SW7600G from Europe in the mid-90s. And another Tomic says also an old Sony ICF. Focus 2004 Able, 2 radios, the Digitech AR1780. I also have one of them. Not a bad receiver, just take out the batteries when you're not using it. And I have reviewed it. And the second one he's got is a Sihayuan R108, which has some other bands, but no BFO. So yeah. Brian M has a Sanjian ATS 803A. Then a couple from JCar, and AR1733, and lastly the 1780. So yeah, that's been a popular receiver. The AR1780 Digitech from JCar, if you're here in Australia. Charlie B was a portable receiver, but it was portable in that you only had the handle, because it was a big thing. A Zenith Transoceanic D7000Y. Sony's ICFs are quite popular. ICF 100E. A Texang PL330, another vote for that from VK1DON. ICF 7600, also popular. DGen 1103, that was quite popular for a while. It was Robert's RB9914 from Barnlog TM. Rudy Drewfinger, another vote for a Texang PL330. Another Texang PL660. Grundig comes up there, C6 astronaut. PL368 Texang. Sony 2010 and 7600. So yeah, a lot of ideas here. PL330 from Texang seems to be super popular. So yeah, some ideas in portable shortwave receivers. And if you've just joined, I'm Peter VK3YE, and we are live. Not too many people in the chat, but we've been going for over 2 hours, so yep. And Adam, would a 4-to-1 Unan work at the end of the G5RV antenna? No. Well, the G5RV is centre-fed, low impedance, so it would be a 1-to-1 balun. You'd normally have it at the bottom of your 300 ohm going to your coax. Question. I asked a few people about RF noise. What do you do if you've got lots of RF noise signals at home and you can't have difficulty hearing signals? Well, 46% of you put ferrites on everything. Another 22% only operate mobile and portable, so it's too hard at home. Another very close 21% moved or changed the antenna to lessen the noise pickup. 6% built a remote station, and 5% gone off air completely. So yeah, different responses to if you've got lots of noise. VK2IG, yeah, moved or changed my antenna by lessening noise pickup, by selling the house and buying a rural property. Yep, that's probably the ideal. Best move I ever made. If you can't sell the if you can't afford a big rural property or have to stay in the city, then I think the next best is at least moving to an area where there's a lot of open space nearby. And I'm lucky that I've got all that, where it's a very short trip to various outdoor locations. Now, what hasn't worked sometimes is as useful as what has worked. And Neil found that installing a one-to-one, but Neil found that installing a one-to-one balun on the fan dipole did help. Swapping out the old wire for the 10-meter element, reduced the noise further, had a BHI DSP noise reduction speaker. So that helped. Andrew Janeski, desktop computer was the culprit. So move the computer out to the shed and access it remotely with another computer that caused no noise. So that fixed the problem. Mr. Supetrodine, 1x1 unplugged electrical items. Yep, good move. Lights, phone, chargers, printers, Wi-Fi extenders, and observed the noise floor. It got lower, lower until you found the cause. Fluorescent strip light. Now, of course, the other thing you could do is have your receiver battery powered and turn everything off the main switch. And then you know there's nothing is on at home. And then gradually turn things back on and see what produces the noise. But in this case now, if I want to work HF, I unplug everything in the shack. Yeah. And if I want the lowest noise possible, turn everything off, operate from a gel cell. Yeah, definitely. At my radio club, we're trying to Ziju NR1 with noise reduction unit, low noise. Mag Loop pulls the noise from S8 to S3. Signal is half an S point down. That was from Chris Wilson, so you did really well there. Ed Beckwith wrote for band openings when signals get stronger. Yeah. I think if we can, we'll see if we can get through all this. What's the lowest power? Oh, there's just some really good responses here. I'm Peter VK3YE and I am live, so you can ask me stuff. If you're in Melbourne area, I am monitoring 146,500 on 2 meters right now, FM. Or you can just ask a question or whatever in the chat. What's the lowest power you've ever used to make an HF contact? Well, for 40% of you, lowest power is 5 watts. Another 22%, 1 watt. Another 17%, you made contacts with 100 milliwatts, so well done. 11%, just a few milliwatts, so real hardcore QRPP. And 11%, life's too short for QRP, so yeah, just high power. And there's some really good stories here about what they achieved with that low power. So I'll read a few of them. Glider Rider, 1/10 of a watt, CW, from a sailboat in Texas as a 10-year-old kid in California on 10 motors, and he got 2,000 miles. So that reminds us, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, middle of summer, probably going to be good conditions on sporadic E on 10 meters, so definitely time to think about that. And the other was 1/4 of a mile, 500 miles from California to Washington State. That was a rockmite to rockmite as a random CW contact. So well done. It was probably on 7 megahertz, so good results. Rob 386 had contacts on 11 meters using standard CB equipment. Working skip with an Australian station. Don't know where he was, but presumably the other side of the world. And that was on 5 watts, and then FT8 in Europe, Central Europe, on FT991A. Coastal Waves and Wires. Now, if you haven't done so, check out his portable QRP videos. 1 watt SSB on the beach in Virginia Beach, USA, to the Netherlands. 5/7 report. To say I was excited would have been an understatement. That's from Walt K4OGO. So thanks for the comment. Neil, a few 1 watt SSB and 10 meter to Italy from the UK. 900-ish miles, 300 watt AM on 15 meters to Portugal. So yeah, lowest my radio goes is 1 watt. So looking to make an attenuator. Yep, that's a good project. There's been times where you get really strong 5.9 reports with 1 watt. So definitely have an attenuator. Get it down. Carl Hill, air round versus ferrite-based balun. I think ferrite is what most people use, but in a pinch, you try air round because some could work. Some people, just twist wire together and wrap around air core. So much written and said about balance. It's hard to know where to start. Now, Robert Van den Sanden, his first few CW contacts were on 7 megahertz with 100 milliwatts. The furthest away was a bit over 1,000 kilometers, Netherlands to Italy with 549. That was in the spring of 2008. Yep, no, you can do well with 7 meg at that sort of distance. Our 1 watt SSTV on 80 meters into Germany. Chris Wilson made it from Sydney to Bris Vegas with a Pixie with VK4TJ. Another one with VK5HAA. with FRG FT747GX, but established the call with 1 watt. And that was with a homebrew 8 meter. That would be quite a circumference magnetic loop. That would be quite a monster. It would be about 2.5 meters in diameter. Hello to Ringray Manchester. Now, I really have to credit you. Thank you, Lewis, because it was your videos on Pirate Radio that inspired me to do my big Pirate Radio series. And that ended up being a 5-part series on Australian pirates. Now I've done basically a century of pirates. I start in the 1920s and go through to the 2020s. So thanks, Lewis. Glad you enjoyed the video. And I probably shamelessly copied a bit of your format, but it's funny, not many people watched my pirate videos. They didn't get very many views. They took a lot of time to produce, as yours would as well. But the comments and the anecdotes I got made it well worth doing. If you haven't done so, watch my pirate videos. I'm biased. I think they're some of my best recent videos I've done on various pirate radio activity around Australia. Still looking at the low power stuff. 2 watts AM New Zealand CB radio, Sydney to Auckland on 27 megahertz. More recently, 100, 200 milliwatt beacon, also on 11 meters. Heard 3 kilometers away on a rough and hastily erected L-shaped antenna. One time I worked CW. Just had an idea for another project. I was just thinking, I've got a 6 meter beacon. It has an Arduino in it, but there are times where I might be wanting a beacon on 6 meters. I'm just thinking, I've got the code in Arduino. I've got my call sign, my grid locator. Maybe I'll see if the code is. I might actually put a connection on the 6 meter beacon thing, so I can at least feed the Arduino to something else. I could have like a 10 meter beacon as well, being driven by that same thing. So yeah, it's just given me an idea, talking about low power beacons and stuff. Now Joe Krebs got 2.5 watts to Slovenia on 20 meters SSB, over 4,000 miles, and that was mobile, with a FT817 into a diamond mag mount. Also busted so both low power and a really basic antenna, mobile antenna. Busted a pile up as well into Germany. So yeah, a lot of opportunities. Andy Reid, 496 milliwatts, measured at very precise, from England to a station in Mallorca on 2 meters SSB, using a 11.5 wave center-fed dipole with full wave sliding loop via impedance matching. So yeah, long wire antennas can have quite a lot of gain. And hello to Pattaya Places in Thailand, and glad you enjoy the videos, John HS0SZJX. 17 still watching, so that's good. And I am live, and I'm Peter, VK3YE. Dick Baitup got 5 watts SSB into Russia from VK on 15 meters using a 40 meter dipole. Yep, that can work. 15 meters on a 40 meter dipole. Longest DX from VK2 IG from just near Newcastle, VK2 to C2 Nauru, using a quarter wave sloping wire on 1 watt. So, yeah, England, then Leo Connolly, England to Australia with 5 watts of SSB. That was from M0RQX. So, yeah, that's just a few of the things that people have done with low power, which I asked on as a question on the community tab on my YouTube. And thanks all to subscribing for the 20,000 subscribers. So that's why I thought I'd come on and do this live thing. Then I asked people about what the favorite way to test whether a new antenna had improved the signal. And most popular amongst people was set up Whisper, weak signal propagation reporter. You can do it with an SSB HF transceiver, a computer with a sound card, and the WSJT software, which is free. You can download it. You can transmit Whisper as well as a lot of other stuff. Set that up and leave your station on and get signal reports, and you'll get reports from all over the world. So that's most popular. 47% of you to test an antenna tried that, and you could compare it with other antennas. There's limitations with that test method, but it gives you an idea. I've done a few videos on that demonstrating that. Now, the second most popular was making lots of contacts and getting reports, preferably if you can do A-B comparisons. That's 29% of you. 23% use a remote receiver. Check comparing strength. 1% entering a contest and seeing if you do better than last year, which is unscientific, as other things can change. But Peter Mills said none of the above. Peter M3KXZ. Peter instead, because he points out, and he's right, you've got to switch back and forth between antennas in short space for changes in propagation. Ideally, both antennas need to be set up, and using just one relatively local remote receiver, as often done, is pretty pointless because it will only indicate the signal strength at one discrete point. So many variables. Like you could probably, if you did something like Whisper and you looked at long-term things and lots of locations, I think that would tend to aggregate, some things would average out. And you'd be able to see that at certain parts of the world, some antennas are consistently better than others. I did a video on the TLI antenna. I think I did some Whisper tests there. So look that up. Reverse beacon. Reverse beacon, that's another thing for CW. You can send CQ on CW. Here in Australia, there's a couple of reverse beacons. So typically, if I come up on 40 meters, there's only 2 stations or so that might get me. So that's where Whisper is an advantage because there's more points around. Now, something else. This is a really handy thing. If you think yourself you're in the center of the world, or if there's someone you know who they think they're in the center of the world, you can confirm that they are right. And this is actually useful for a lot of HF things. So I'll just point the computer there. You can actually generate a map like that, centered on yourself. It's an azimuthal map generator, and it's hosted by NS6T. And if you look at ns6t.net, and there'll be a link there, an azimuth map generator, it generates it for you. You put in your location or your latitude or longitude, and it will draw a map like that, centered on your precise location. So that sort of thing is good for beam heading stuff, and seeing what sort of paths DX is coming through. You can look at where long path is, where short path is. You can get a rough idea as to what places you're likely to contact if you point your beam. So hello to VK2MOE Joel. So glad you enjoyed the video, and thanks for the congratulations. So let's have a look at comments on there. VK2IG points out the antipode, where it's the furthest possible from your location, is all the way around the outside rim. And hello to John, just from Morwell. And okay, we are not okay. I also asked people about, and I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm live. Do you take amateur radio with me when I'm going on holidays? I did a survey. And 46% of you did. About 200 votes in this, so good number. 46% of you did. Often have occasional contacts or skeds. Then there's another 17% who are really enthusiastic, who ticked always, and radio often influences the choice of location. So not just taking radio along for the holiday, but radio being the holiday. Another 15% only when on my own, holidays or family occasions. And then rarely 9%, but it can be a useful emergency backup. So, and then there's 13% who never took radio because I was too busy enjoying the holiday. So yeah, sometimes I'm like that as well. My last trip somewhere was down to VK7 Tasmania. I didn't take any gear, but I had to leave lots of space in the suitcase for the FRG7 that I brought back. And then I asked people about, you might remember, what's the biggest amateur antenna you've ever erected and how did it work? I only got 3 likes to that and 5 comments. Peter VK3ZPF put up a 4 wavelength rhombic for 20 meters for the JA-DXS-SB contact. Lots of wire in the trees, would have taken a while to put up, but I don't think he got it pointing the right way, and results were a little better than a delta loop. So yeah, sometimes big antennas can be not quite what you are, not quite perfect. Now Jim Smallwood, we're only 4 days ago here. We're pretty close to finished. Have up in his suburban yard, 130 foot, 80 to 10 meter end-fed half wave. So there's another vote for end-fed half wave. And it works very well. He works the world from Florida with 4 watts. And the antenna is from High End-Fed in Holland. And it's supported on 2 41-foot spider beam masts and a 15-foot length of PVC pipe supporting the Unan. The Qrp Best uses an inverted L quarter wavelength on 160 meters. Used it for a 1.5 watt CW transmitter and had a Regenerative Receiver with its own loop antenna. And he made a contact with another ZL operator within 5 kilometers. PU1OWL Rafael tried a 20 meter wire with a 49 to 1 transformer, but couldn't extend it on the roof. Squid pole bent too much. What you can do there is you can go down to like a 12 meter wire and have a loading coil at the far end. You'll reduce the bandwidth on 7 megahertz, but it will still work on 14 megahertz. Because his building has a patio that's 15 meters long, so you could fit that in. Tech tinkering 5 meter CB antenna out CB window and got a 20-mile range, which is pretty good. I'd say you're doing well there. Now then, I still asked about, and there's the picture for those who saw it, with a wet noodle. And I was asking about what wet noodles you were operating as antennas. And Chris Wilson said magnetic loop that worked quite well until it rained, and wooden frame and it soaked, and then came the losses. But then when it dried out, it came to life. Then he tried a dummy load with resistors. Rob R386, bad placement of a inverted V. Musket balls, worst antenna, quarter wave for 2 meters on the car. That's okay, nothing wrong with that. Best antenna, double extended ZEP, cut for 40 meters, worked very well. Cut for 40 meters, 50 meters up, worked very well, 160 and up. Yeah. CE3 VRT, a HF mobile antenna with a jumper to select the band. Has about 1-to-1 SWR. VK2IG tried a tri-band fan dipole for the WARC bands. Showed good VSWR, even made contacts, and we've spoken about ballons a bit today, but the reason it had good VSWR was the ballon, one of those Amazon kit ballons featuring a T200 mix iron powder core that DSE sold. Built the same thing with a real ballon using the ferrite core, and it won't look too VSWR friendly. So what are the replies to that? They designed a WAC antenna. Okay. Discussion about ballons came from, yeah, that's right. I remember those. The ballon kit, it was red. That's right. And it was an Amazon ballon kit. And I heard that the design came from someone's idea that only 500 ohm of choking impedance was needed in a ballon. Now, so it was iron, because it being red towards a iron powder. Nowadays, all my ballons are ferrite cored, but the T200 iron powder mix would be okay for an HF transformer. So yeah, overall, the powdered iron cores are good for tuned transformers. Ferrite is for broadband. So yeah. And John West says, I've never had a bad ham antenna, probably because I was experienced antenna builder already from other radio stuff. Now VK2IG replies that people get caught out with glowing performance reports from those junky small antennas. Yeah, you know, put it up and it worked DX straight away. Quite often the DX is 3 states away or up into Canada or whatever from the US. So yeah. And then I asked people, a lot of people, yeah, it's quite exciting. I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm just going through all this. These are questions that people have answered or surveys that have done on the community tab. So a lot of really interesting reading there. It's on my YouTube channel, and I'm live, and I'm also chatting. You can have a look at the chat, put a few comments and whatever. Not many just in the last couple of minutes, so ask me anything there. And in the meantime, that is just a circuit diagram of a very simple 80-meter ceramic resonator transmitter. Details on my website. But what was the last electronic project you built? And Clint J, their last project was a tiny 0.96-inch barometer. It used OLEDs and Pi Picos and things. Next project will be a 17-meter SSB transceiver, so that'll be a lot of fun. VK2IG built a Dick Smith kit, a K7340 sine square wave generator. And MAIA965 built a stable multi-vibrator beacon circuit, so about 100 milliwatt output on 27 meg. Now, Ian Mitchell, 38 minutes ago. This is what we were talking about before. Ian has just finished a 5-band QRP rig, hybrid single conversion 11.059 IF. So yeah, it's not complete. So have a look at HYSSB on GitHub. HYSSB on GitHub. That's VK7IAN's 5-band QRP rig. Actually, I'm a bit intrigued about this. Maybe I'll put a post on my Facebook page about this. Mike built a QDX kit. Raphael PU1OWL built a field strength meter. Andy Howe built a Maplin's kit, 3.5 meg receiver. I wonder if they were the CM Howe's kits. Built in the 80s. Chris Wilson's working on a guitar amp. I think I've seen these kits this bit before. Here we are, Art of Engineering, building a 9-volt regulator for a direct conversion kit. So yeah, quite a few projects that people are building. Oh no, it's the last project. I might have doubled up there. Now, another thing is As the thing says, do you take radio gear when you are out walking? Of course, with cheap handhelds and all that, probably everyone's got a handheld now. And it's really a mixture. Some people take like a little handheld, others just try take a little receiver, maybe a wearable loop. Sometimes, here we are, wearable loop for a Belka receiver. Sometimes it works great, but sometimes you had to walk sideways to get a good signal. And walking with that thing under an LED street light, not fun at all. Yep, all that noise. VK2IG used to take an FT470. Belfing UV82, local repeaters. Yep, good rig. I use it, UV82. Randy AB9GO says not much activity around. You Aussies, from what I can tell, utilise our VHF, UHF bands more. But there's a bit of activity in Western Nevada, apparently, from David Thompson. Capricorn 1 takes a C-Crane shortwave. Here we are. Around Charlie B, around Washington, D.C., you can attract an unusual amount of attention for having a radio or just a camera, even a camera. That's from KM4ZZ. So, yeah. Now, also ask if you can ask various things in the chat. I won't be going too much longer. I've been going for nearly 2 hours, over 2 hours. I did ask people about Hamfests because a lot have been cancelled recently. And Harley, that's interesting. I thought this was a mic gain thing. Does this actually work? Anyway, I'm not seeing very much audio jumping. Anyway, people are apparently hearing me. Maybe there's a... No, it's okay. Okay, Hamfest, because a lot have been cancelled. Anyway, 41%, and I was surprised it was quite high. 41% of you have never been to a Hamfest. That's the biggest number in the survey. Another 35%, and I was expecting this, sometime in pre-COVID, pre-history. Yeah, it's been a long time. A lot of areas haven't had Hamfest. We're back to running some Hamfests in Melbourne lately. There was one, I did a video on it a couple of months ago. Anyway, however, 6% of you went to a Hamfest less than 1 month ago, and 13% less than 16 months ago, and then 6% less than a year ago. So add all that up, and it's about 30%. 25% have been to a Hamfest in the last year. Louise, has I tried different balance of different mixtures round together? If so, did you notice an advantage? No, I haven't. Yeah. Interesting experiment, worth someone doing a video about it. Did you notice an advantage comparing the same balance of a different type of toroid mixers? Now, the last question, my most recent question I asked a few hours ago, actually. What's the highest gain antenna you've ever used? And only a few people, 8%, have used monster quads or stacked Yagis on big towers of 10 dB plus gain. Another 26% used a 2 or 3 element monoband or trapped beam. Your standard tri-bander with 5 to 7 dB gain, maybe nearer to 7. 9% have tried fancy wire contraptions, maybe a couple of dB gain. I'd really suggest, it's only 9%. I'd really suggest that's where you get your biggest bang for the buck. They're super cheap. You can get some really good results from them. So yeah, definitely look up antennas like half squares and bobtails and even more. I've done lots of videos on them. 47% of the youth own 0 dB, just a dipole, and another 9% mobile whips and magnetic loops, so worse than a dipole. So not very many of you are into experimenting with big gain antennas. and dipole or worse is about the best for most. So that I thought that was quite interesting. So that's been a snapshot of viewers with various polls and questions of my viewers on the, and you can read them all on the community tab, and feel free to put in a few comments and votes and whatever. And I am still live, and I'm Peter, VK3YE. And yeah, thanks to all for helping me get to 20,000 subscribers. A lot of videos coming up. Might even be one tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, it's the next day. But anyway, yeah, so some interesting videos. If you're in Australia, the thing that's really taken the radio community by storm, lots of people really interested, is the Shortwave Australia. It's on 5 hours a day. Sometimes it's on a bit before or a bit after, but roughly it's 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's just outside Bendigo, 4835 megahertz. They don't have a website yet, but they do give a phone number for signal reports, 4835. So tune your AM receiver to that. And later at night, 2310 comes on. So that's Shortwave Australia. There's some musical programs, there's some historical stuff. So it's a real mix of programs and materials, so historical materials. So just turn on and take a listen. If you're not in Australia, then use a web SDR like VK5ARG is really good. Set it to 4835. And that is between about 0500 and 1000 UTC. You're sure to get it from there, so you can listen via SDR. Anyway, that's been really popular, and the video I've done has had something like 6,000 views in not very many days. So, yep, Shortwave Australia has been given us something new to listen to. So yeah, I think we might wrap it up there. It's nearly 10 a.m., would you believe? So unless there's any last-minute questions or comments, just leave them in the chat. I'll just wait a little while, and yeah, and then we'll call it a day. We've been going for nearly 3 hours. So it looks like it's all very quiet. There'll be probably some. I'll leave this up as a permanent video, as I've covered a lot of content about antennas and things. So, yep, if you missed or just joined later, you'll be able to watch the whole lot. So thanks all, and enjoy your day, and thanks for helping me get to 20,000.